Hi, everyone. Andrea Vall here, and I want to take a quick minute to give you some tips on how to price your services as a social media manager or consultant. Now, this is one of the biggest questions I get, and Phyllis, Kara, and I both get as we have started Social Media Manager School. People want to know, how should I do my pricing? And there are a few considerations that you need to take into account when you are setting this up. And a lot of times we encourage people to set up packages and kind of do some calculations. And we actually have a pricing guide that helps you set up things like your project rate, your retainer rate, and there's a whole bunch of math that goes into that. But I also want to talk about some of the bigger picture items that you need to think about when you're pricing your services. And one of those, the first one that I would suggest taking a look at, is the market for your product or service. So you need to know what other people are charging. It's a good idea to do a little competitor research in this area and really kind of figure out, hey, am I in line? Am I way out of line? And just kind of know. Now, just because you find some prices out there doesn't mean that that is necessarily a perfect guide, because it might be someone who has more experience than you or less experience or isn't even really in business anymore at all. So you want to dive into that. But one of the ways we suggest doing a little market research is to just start with Google and do a little Googling around the service package that you might be in the market for. So for example, if you're looking to put together a social media strategy, you might Google social media strategy pricing package or something like that, and use some different terminology there to figure out what other people might word that as. So the number one consideration is the market. What are people pricing things at? And that also can relate to a particular niche. So if you are working with artists, that might be some different pricing that market is willing to bear rather than working with C-level companies. So for sure, you want to price that accordingly. So it's a big challenge, and you want to do your research and know some of your numbers. The second thing that you want to take into account is your expertise. So if you're just starting out as a social media manager or consultant, that's going to be a little bit different than if you've had 8 years of experience, for example. So you want to take that into consideration. If you've done some big things, if you're becoming more well-known, for sure, you want to raise your prices. And that's one of the biggest advantages of having your own business, is you can give yourself a raise when you feel like you deserve it, right? So your expertise is going to come into play with how you set your prices. You want to make sure that that's in line with your brand and your perception out there in the world. And hi, Teresa, good to see you here. So the point number 3 with setting your prices and understanding how to price your services is the time it'll take you to do that service that you're proposing. So this can be a kind of more involved calculation here, where you're going to figure out how long does it take you to write 10 tweets or research your client. And sometimes that's kind of hard to determine. And that time will actually decrease as you get more experience. And that is kind of another way to give yourself a little bit of a raise there, because you're going to get faster at those services that you offer. So that's a good thing. But the other challenge is, when you're new, some of this can take a lot more time. Maybe you're trying to figure out how to do the research. Maybe you don't have a system in place. And so you want to try and get a system in place so that you are not going down a rabbit hole of spending too much time on these services and then making sure you don't get paid like 5 cents an hour, right? No one wants that. So that is a challenge. but hopefully you can set up some systems, you can do a little testing. And we have, like I mentioned, we have this great guide that kind of talks about how to price your services. I'll put a link here in the comments so that you can grab that guide, and that will help you figure out what time you have or what pricing you should have for those products and services. And hopefully that will help you in setting up your own business. So, and just to let you know, Social Media Manager School will be opening soon. We're super excited about that. So I'll put a link in there to get on the list as well. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.